Welcome to this week's episode of Making It in Asheville. This is your podcast to hear local stories of artists, creators, makers, community organizers. On this podcast, we ask people what they're making and how they are making it in Asheville. And today, we're very excited to share the story of 31 Sons. And it is a team. So we have two guests today, Emily Jeffords and Kylie AG. Which I am not. Did I say it right? All right, cool. I did say it right. And they are the badasses behind Shop 31 Sons, one of my favorite Instagram follows. I don't have any of your products, but I think Sarah does. And so it's great to have you. Please take a moment, say hello to Making It in Asheville audience.
Hey, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. So I will do, at least in the early parts of this conversation, maybe we say, and this is Kylie speaking until people get used to voices, but I'll ask like Shop 31 Sons is how I think. I always say Shop 31 Sons because I think that's the Instagram handle. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so Shop 31 Sons has been on our radar since we moved to Asheville. Tell us a little bit about Shop 31 Sons or 31 Sons.
31 Sons Studio is a jewelry design studio, and it started in June of 2018. I'm based in Black Mountain, North Carolina, and I mainly work with polymer clay jewelry, and then I've been incorporating beading. I've touched on resin, and really I have adult functioning ADD. So once I get an idea in my mind, I really just, I don't limit myself to any specific medium, but mainly polymer clay. And I just recently hired Kylie, who's with us today, 4 months ago today. And she is not an assistant, not a coworker. She is fully half of this team. I would not, I don't understand how I functioned without her. So she is very much part of this team.
Perfect.
So that's a little bit about us as an intro.
Thank you. I think that's perfect. And so help me get a sense of like the scale of what's going on, right? So I watch on Instagram, I think that I should probably look right now, but like your Instagram is to me like I want to call it a masterclass in like a human brand thing where like there is these beautiful, beautiful products. And then there's also clearly like a real person that is making this thing. And so like what your business has hit at least a huge mile marker in that you have a teammate that's meaningful. But like, where is the business today? Like what, are you selling on a website? Are you selling on Etsy? Give us a sense of like scale. What's going on?
Well, this past year, as hard personally as hard personally as 2020 was for me, and I'm sure for so many people, and we're still feeling the repercussions and in the midst of it, it professionally made me take a lot of uncomfortable strides at some point, but strides I know I needed to do to improve and to challenge myself and to not stay stagnant, especially in areas where I know I wasn't thriving, and especially in areas where I felt this isn't right. Like if it's one thing, and you said the human brand, which really resonates and I take as a huge compliment, is that I think I'm pretty self-aware. And I struggled a lot last year in terms of me watching my business grow, but not understanding how to organize myself and not understanding some of the logistics behind it, like having an operating budget, like having a calendar, you know, like having things that you have to do outside of being just an artist. And so last year, I really challenged myself, okay, what can I do if I can't do it? What can I do to get better with other people helping me? And accepting help was a huge thing for me because I'm the kind of person that's like, I don't want to bother anybody. I'm fine. And I'm just crying in my giant dumpster fire that I've created. So Kylie and I, actually how this started is really funny. We were sitting 10 feet apart, celebrating my birthday on the porch. And because of social distancing and everything. And we started talking about how it would be just incredible if I could have help. Because I've been struggling. I've been struggling with the amount of orders on my website, and just kind of keeping my head afloat. And so we started talking about it, and I was like, well, I couldn't have you work here because it was out of my home at that point. This was in June 2020. And I was like, I'd have to get a studio because my house is, the rooms are small. It's an old house. And we just started dreaming a little bit. And within 2 weeks, I had a lease.
Ha.
Yeah. I took a major chance on myself, I guess, with that. I did not know that would be happening in 2 weeks, but it did. And Kylie and I set the wheels in motion of getting her here because where I lack in logistics and rational thinking sometimes, this is my partner in that. And you asked about kind of the scale of where things are happening. And, I don't want to name numbers, but things have grown for me, which it's incredible. But I also can sometimes be my own worst enemy in believing that and being confident in that success. And sometimes not even just logistical thinking and, the operating budget and things like that. It's having someone tell me that I deserve this and that I've worked hard enough to have a teammate and hard enough to exist and be here and thrive in that success. Like Kylie told me before we started this, don't apologize for your success. And I grabbed my table and I was like, oh my God, I do that all the time. So it's been a year of growth. And some of it has been hard because a lot of my personal emotions kind of bleed into my professional emotions. And so I've been working with that, but really it's just been, we got a studio, I got a coworker, and, we've been growing together with that. And it's been the best thing that's ever happened to my business ever.
Amazing. I love
I'm no longer crying. I'm no longer crying in the dumpster fire. I just threw matches at. I was just throwing the matches.
So I love that as a setup. And now I'll ask Kylie, a self-proclaimed dumpster fire was going on 10 feet away from you. And somehow or another you said, I'll go into that dumpster. How did you think, what with a rational mind, right? With the, I think Sarah and I, have something like what I'm hearing is the energy where I am a dreamer and Sarah is like, all right, so what then are the next steps? How do we actually do it? And so when faced with this, opportunity, how were you thinking about the transition? How did you think about where you'd add value? What thoughts were coming to mind for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I had a lot of thoughts when Emily and I really started talking about this seriously, and I did have a lot of fears. I was at a job that I had been in for 5 years, working in fundraising and project management for a nonprofit in town, and was comfortable there. And I'd been there a long time, and this was not really something that I ever pictured actually coming to fruition. We had daydreamed about how great it would be to work together, but when we really got the ball rolling, I was like, oh my God, is this a risk that is worth taking? And I really had to think a lot about where I was at professionally. Was I happy with my work-life balance? Was I regret it?
Secret.
Was I going to regret it if I didn't try? And the answer was yes. So I decided to just take a leap of faith. I'm young enough to where we do crash and burn. We can recover,
but we won't.
Yeah. No.
We're doing okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so then you had been friends for a while before this, right? How did you all connect?
Well, we actually met at a friend's birthday party, and it was one of those things where I think we were both in marching band, and somehow we both started talking about that. And I was just like, who is this person? I consider myself a pretty feely, emotional person. But when I connect with someone on when I met her, I was like, I feel like I've known Kylie for a very long time. It was immediately comfortable. It was immediately I didn't feel self-conscious. I didn't feel, like I had to impress anybody. It's hard for me to act like that anyway. But with her, it just felt like an immediate, sisterly feeling. And ever since that night, we've just been talking, and been growing a friendship ever since. And this opportunity of us kind of starting to work together, it just catapulted that. I just really don't understand. She's a limb now. I don't understand what my life was like before her.
It's amazing.
I have smart boxes on my email. Like, I have folders now, so it's beyond that, like, of all of her help with me. I've really grown as a person and as a human, and really just managed myself better. And it's from just having that person that I can not only trust as a friend, but trust so deeply as a coworker. We always talk about how our relationship as a working relationship, it's a dream. Like, we've all been in horrible work situations before, but the amount of communication and critical thinking and being able to bounce ideas off of each other without taking it personally, and with the ego being fully removed from it, it's a dream.
Amazing. So I think I'm going to have a whole bunch of questions about work relationships, but I want to kind of circle back towards product, or like the beginning of the business and the idea of the business. This will be the second time we've had a guest talk about resin, which was like it seems like a fun concept. Like, how did you start? You were in marching band? Did you take an art class in high school, and clay was a thing that you've always played with? Tell us that, like, a little bit of the story of where 31 Sons comes from.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because a lot of where 31 Sons came from was not a place of where I had known that I had value before. I was in banking before this. Yeah, I worked at a bank for years, and I didn't finish college. I went to several different colleges and dropped out of all of them. I've always been an artistic person, but not in the way where I felt like I was good at it. I've always felt average at just about everything that I've ever done in my life. And I just had my firstborn son, Jack, in 2018. Or no, yes, 2018. No.
Let me check my notes. I have.
Take that out of the podcast. I don't know when my children were born. I just had Hank. Yes, my last one. And I had a really hard time with postpartum depression. And I hit a point where I was just like, this is not, life isn't supposed to feel this way. It's not supposed to be this way. And my therapist recommended that I started doing something with my hands to keep my hands busy. And I happened upon polymer clay. And since then it exploded. It was like, I didn't know that there was something in there inside me that could make something that made me feel so good. And besides that, make other people feel good. I'd never had anything like that happen to me. And so, that's where it all began. And I do want to say too, I do use resin, but it's not a huge part of my work, but it's mainly been polymer clay. And I think part of that is because, I don't know, I guess with any kind of art, I try not to put any expectations on it. It's just, a lot of it is fueled from what I'm feeling, which can be hard, because then if I'm not feeling great, I don't always make great things, but it's the after feeling of getting something out, even if it doesn't turn into anything, that I released something from myself,
Yeah.
And that block of clay doesn't have to talk back to me. It doesn't have to be a sale. It doesn't have to be a whatever. It's just releasing something that I've had pinned up. So it's massively been like a healing and therapeutic thing for me. And it just, luckily, and I'm privileged enough to say that it's actually turned into the income that supports my family.
Wow.
So
that's amazing. I am like in a point where I'm thinking about like the moving meditation of anything that like pulls you back into your body as like therapy. I'm wondering if can you remember back to like the first piece you made? Is there, so it's clay polymer. That doesn't necessarily mean anything to me. Does that mean like it is easy to work with and then it sets, you can bake it in an oven? Like, what is a clay polymer? What's the first thing you made?
Well, the first thing I did make was just a pair of earrings. And polymer clay it actually has plasticizers in it. It has polymers in it. So it's not clay like ceramic clay or something that you bake in a kiln. It's baked in an oven, like an oven at home.
So I guessed right. That was not, I was just like, if you did it at home, and maybe it works in an oven.
It does. No, you were on the money. You're on the money. And that's actually one of the reasons I'm so excited to be on this podcast, is to give people more information about what it is.
Yeah.
Because then it will be taken more seriously as a medium. Not that people don't take it seriously, but a lot of people don't know what it is. Yeah. And so it's a clay that has plasticizers in it. And so you hear plastic and you're like, oh, that's bad, which understandably, we're always trying to better the environment. But if you're taking a medium seriously and you do it right, and this is one of the reasons why I teach, is because then it isn't waste. If you're putting out product that isn't going to be thrown away, and isn't fast fashion and is made correctly, then it should last you decades. And so that's kind of what polymer clay is. It's a clay that you can buy at craft stores. You can buy it online. There's a little bit of a clay shortage right now because it's become such a big medium, which is awesome, but also hard if you work with it on a daily basis. But it's a very easy medium to dive into. But just like with anything, there are obstacles and things that you really need to practice before I personally would sell work.
Sure.
But I don't know if I answered your question, but that's kind of what polymer clay is. And the first thing that I ever made was just a pair of earrings. I didn't have a whole lot of money to invest in what I was doing. So I actually crushed up all of the eyeshadow palettes that I had at home, and I mixed them into the clay that I had to make colors. So
that sounds really savvy. I don't know if it like that. You just can't imagine you still do it.
Creative. It's actually a fun technique now because it can add different colors, unique ones without having to buy more clay. But that's kind of where I started. It was almost a desperation to make something, and it was just I didn't have any of the tools necessary. They all broke. I didn't bake them correctly. There weren't a lot of resources. Even though that was not that long ago, there was not nearly as many resources out as there is today of how to properly handle this kind of medium. And so a lot of it was just experimenting and failing 100,000 times, and then, getting better over time. So those first pieces, as awful as they probably were, I look at them fondly because they opened that door inside of a place that I didn't know existed.
That's awesome. And I'm looking, if you're watching our YouTube channel, shout out to Making It in Asheville on YouTube. I see these beautiful earrings that you're wearing. I'm imagining that you didn't buy those at a store. You might have made these. Got it. And so it's like very thin. It seems like it would be a very like precise. I'm seeing these tiny little hoops to connect pieces together. So like it seems like there's a lot of flexibility potentially in what you could do, but they're very strong, seemingly have to be able to I don't know, be as thin as they are and not fall to bits.
Yeah. It's actually interesting that you say that, because there's in the polymer clay community, it's almost a flex, literally a flex, that if your clay is baked correctly, then it should bend. It should not snap. That's always the sign of something being bent or being baked incorrectly, is that it will snap and it's brittle. And so the flexibility is a huge part of the clay, because then you know that you've done it right. But just it's very light. It's very lightweight. That's why I can get away with making such large earrings, is that it's a very, very lightweight clay and lightweight medium. So there's just so much. Imagine you can paint anything you want, but sculpturally, you can do anything you want. I see people that make they make, if you can imagine it, you can make it with clay. Like people are making small animals and hanging them off the pier. Like anything that you can imagine, somebody can make. And of course it takes like a skill set, but just with anything, and I'll say it over and over and over again, it's practice. Yeah. And it's really using your creativity as a muscle to keep trying. So it's a fun medium.
I love that. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. And now in a medium where anything is possible, how did you, because I feel that you have a pretty distinctive look and feel That's my outsider's assessment of the situation. But like, how did you unearth your vibe, or did you always have a strong point of view on like what design aesthetic you were into? How are we now at 31 Sons with the design, that, I say those earrings look like what I thought you might be wearing today. It's like on brand.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
There's two different perspectives of that for me, just because from real life living, I've never been able to make something I don't like. I can't force myself to work and find designs or even follow trends as much as I want to. There's some trends I love, but there's some where I'm like, I don't like it. And if I don't like it, then I can't market it. I can't pretend to love something I don't. And so how my vibe has been is who I am. It's what speaks to me. And I have students from Patreon where I teach polymer clay. And this is something I always tell them, is that if you're struggling to find your creativity, find that one thing that really speaks to you and think of it like a story. And you write that first chapter and it spoke to you. You wanted to turn those pages. You wanted to keep going. Hold on to that and then write the next chapter based on that. If you're grabbing so many different things and you don't even know what you like, then how is that going to translate to other people? How are they going to know who you are if you don't know who you are? So you have to work with yourself and really sit with yourself and take stock and inventory of what do I like? And I have always known exactly what I like. And I would not make earrings that I would not personally wear.
Yeah.
So
how would you describe your look, your style today? Mine, so I'm saying like there's like a little bit of this vintage vibe, but it's also like timeless. It could be almost futuristic, but it's like it'll work situationally with just I think in any era with the right person, with the right wearer.
Oh, thank you. I like to think the first word that always comes up for me is confident. And because I'm not afraid of color. I'm not afraid of size. I'm not afraid of trying new things. There was a period last year where I was obsessed with using holographic powders to make all of my earrings holographic. So in the light, they would shine different colors. And I stopped doing that for a while. And I'm like, I need to bring that back. But it just feels confident. It feels ethereal. It feels, I don't know. It's, I joked earlier, I'm the dumpster fire woman, which I do think I am sometimes. And I relish that part of me because I'm always trying to get better. But sometimes the earrings that I do create for myself, I create for the best version of me. Like I see that person that is confident, put together, is, doesn't care what anybody thinks about her. And when I put these earrings on, I think I feel that woman. So that's kind of behind my work. I'm always trying to make the work that makes me feel the best version of myself. And I want other women or men, whoever wants to wear my earrings, I want them to feel the same way when they put my work on. So that's the biggest thing. I wouldn't identify my style as like, whatever just singular word. For me, it's a feeling. And that might be lost in the masses. They're like, oh, it's pretty earrings. But for me, that's how I keep creating, is that I want those people to feel that way.
I love that. And Kylie, I just want you to know that I am trying to move like chronologically. That's how my brain works. I'm sorry. And I'm really eager to ask some questions that are going to be more in your wheelhouse.
She's my support right now. I'm trying not to apologize for things. Just pinch me if I say sorry. Yeah.
So we've now, I think, broken past. We have a sense of your design aesthetic. We have a sense of like how it started. You mentioned that you can't market something that you don't like. And I now have thoughts and questions on marketing, right? So my guess is that Instagram, at your dumpster fire, everyone like stopped and looked at and was like, this is beautiful. Like, I don't know. She says dumpster fire. But like, how did you grow your business? It's one thing to go from, all right, I'm trying polymer clay and I put it in the oven and 7 of the 8 broke, but one is good. Let's do this again, see what happens. And then someone's like, oh, those are pretty. And you're like, yeah, you want them? $100. I don't, whatever. How does the business start? And then how do you start marketing it? My guess was Instagram, but how did it actually go?
It was Instagram for sure. And I still, to this day, I'm a little befuddled that my account has grown the way it has. But the only thing I can think is that, and I won't forget that you said it this way because I really liked it, is that there is a humanity with my account, I think. And that's not a farce. It's not an image. It's me. And that's something with Instagram that can really be a struggle as a consumer and just someone scrolling. You can see so many things and it's so pretty and everybody's life looks so put together. And like, why isn't my life like that? Like, I have bad days. Like, does this person not have bad days? Like, am I less than? Am I, all of these questions. And I think everybody deals with that, especially stuck at home right now. And everybody's struggling on some level. Everybody is struggling on some level right now. Is that I am not afraid to kind of show that struggle. And I'm not afraid to just kind of not only show the pretty parts. And I think that on just kind of being myself, which sounds weird and I'm not going to apologize for, connected me to a lot of people. Like a lot of my customers have turned into long distance friends. And I feel nervous right now. I always get nervous when I talk about Instagram. I don't know. I try to just be who I am and show the ugly sides and show, the funny sides and not take myself too seriously. Cause I don't as a person outside of a tiny square. Like one of the most validating things I heard was I met one of my other clay friends in Arizona a couple years ago. And she was like, you are exactly the same person on Instagram as you are in person. And I was like, yeah, like, I'm not putting on some like perfect face. Like I am who I am. And the fact that has translated and people actually do appreciate that. I'm not sure why. Sometimes people are there. I have stupid jokes and I kill a joke. I'll run it into the ground. But I'm laughing. That's the thing. I'm the one laughing behind the phone.
Yeah.
And it just happens to be that other people are laughing too. So I appreciate that. But really just being myself and of course putting my work out there and doing it in a cohesive, pretty level. But I just behind the scenes, I don't take myself as seriously, I think, as some people do. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just hard for me to do that.
Not wired to take it too seriously. And so were there moments that like early days where you thought you were just kind of shouting out into the abyss? Did it just take off? We'll use dumpster fire, wildfire. Like what did growth look like? What was the initial platform that you sold through? Were you saying like, hey, these are for sale? People would say, yes, PayPal me. Or were you using Etsy?
I've always used Shopify, which is a platform, an e-commerce platform. And I love Shopify. It's become an empowering thing for me to figure out how to use it. Cause I went there and I was like, how am I going to use this website? I don't know how to send an email on here. And now I'm like, I can figure stuff out. And it's a very empowering thing. But the thing is that's so interesting now is that, you said shouting out into the abyss. That I think is more of the case now than it was in June 2018, even 2019, because polymer clay was not a thing. I knew 5 other accounts on Instagram that worked with polymer clay. Huh. If you search the polymer clay hashtag now, there are millions.
Wow.
It blew up. TikTok. I mean, all of this stuff, now, if anything, the market is so saturated by it that I feel kind of lucky being the person that, this isn't to yell, get off my lawn, but there weren't any other people doing it when I started. And I think one of the things is that people started to take notice around 2019 and especially at the start of the pandemic because people were at home and needed something to do. So now sometimes it feels like I'm yelling into the abyss because there's so many, but it's not a problem. I thrive in it because I teach. So it hasn't hurt me as a professional, but I also have thoughts on that anyway, like competition and community. But no, back then there weren't many people doing it. So I think people were just kind of interested in the medium itself. So, and I don't even know how to say this, but I've never really, when I started doing it, people immediately took notice.
Yeah.
And that's
typically a good sign.
Yeah, it was a good sign, and it just kind of grew from there. And the more people took notice, the more confident I became.
Yeah.
So
I also want to share a fun fact about Emily.
Oh God. Which one? I'm scrolling in my mind.
She's very like entrepreneurial naturally, which is pretty amazing. But in my mind, because I'm not that way. But Emily had another business, kind of like a side gig prior to doing polymer clay, while she was working at the bank, and she was selling like vintage thrift store stuff.
Right.
And she actually built like a pretty solid customer base doing that.
Yeah.
And had an Instagram following from that. And then when she kind of transitioned into doing polymer clay, a lot of her like vintage thrifty customers transitioned into being 30% studio customers.
And they weren't shocked because I was exactly the same person. Then I was like, I don't like doing this anymore. I have a kid or two kids now, and going to thrift shops and all that stuff. It was impossible to ship giant things or take them to, to go thrifting and stuff. And so I was like, I don't do that anymore. I make jewelry now.
I love that. And that actually makes some sense in my mind as a fit in like the narrative in the story, to like have already had reps with something like a brand and storytelling and like e-commerce, I'll use air quotes. Yeah. And then
I hope, sorry to interrupt. I hope too, it didn't seem like I was not including that. It was just such a, to me, brief part of that it definitely started some things rolling, but it was not, there's a reason I stopped because I didn't really like it, So, but it was a good thing to jump off from.
And I one of the things that I find myself saying is like, I don't believe that things have to be really hard, right? Like I don't subscribe to that worldview. And so like, if there is this kind of like rolling the ball up a hill feeling, even if it's sort of working, but especially if it's not working, like stop, like don't do that. And that's not necessarily a loss because it tees you up to do the next thing, which doesn't feel like rolling a ball up a hill and takes off, and it works. And I don't know, like, what if it was easy is a thing I always try and remind myself when I am moving in directions that don't feel easy. I'm like, what would make this easy? How could this be easy? What would be easier?
Outsource things. Yes.
So so now we have a couple years of, doing things and it working, and audience is growing and the sales are growing. And you're maybe a first mover in clay polymer product design. Cause you're not teaching right out of the gate. You're selling.
No.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had to get a lot of failures and mistakes and experience under my belt before I would have ever felt comfortable teaching.
Perfect. And so what is your loose, because it didn't sound like it was totally baked, but what was your loose business plan? Like, are you saying I'm going wholesale, I'm going direct, like people are going to buy from me, I'll ship it directly to them, I'm looking for retail accounts?
When I first started?
Well, I mean, once you realize that this thing's got some legs, like what are you doing?
Business plan, eh? Google's the definition of that. Honestly, it was fly by the seat of my pants for a long time. It was, and this is something I've been working on recently, is I have, as wonderful as it can seem to have a lot of creativity, I have realized I lack some creative discipline. And so it's when you get 100 different ideas and want to do them and you only create one of each, that's not really a good marketing tactic as a jewelry designer. People want to have the option to buy a piece, not only have one available. And so, that was one of the things that I struggled with, was that I just would get ideas and then I wouldn't do them again because I'd get more ideas. And I didn't really have a business plan until I started working with Kylie. Like that's the thing, is that while my success outwardly, and I'm never ever going to say, and even saying this is like, it just makes me feel like ungrateful. Like I needed it for my family. We rely fully on my income. But there were so many struggles that people didn't see, especially even with me being honest and, on Instagram and stuff. But like I don't go on Instagram and say, I don't have a business plan and I don't know what I'm doing, and those are the things that people don't necessarily see. And I had to work through myself.
Yeah.
And so now a lot of this past 4 months or so have been really evaluating the things that have not worked for me and the things that do work. And in the beginning, I literally just made what I wanted to make and then I sold it.
Wow.
Like that's it. There was no plan with that. It was just, I made what I wanted to make and then I sold it. And then I made more of what I wanted to make and then I sold it. And then I just kept doing that. And sometimes I cry a lot because I didn't have a plan or have organization. And with before times, that's how I think of it, is before times, in the dark ages. I wanted to be that organized, hyper aware of everything I need to do person. And I can be, like, Kylie is a witness to that now, because I am functioning while doing that. I didn't know how to get from point A to point B.
Got it.
So I just made stuff and sold it. And now we have Calendly, like we have all of these apps and things that keep me organized, and to-do lists, and talking about wholesalers, and that just wasn't even an option for me before because I was too busy. And now really using my time strategically, and also to where I'm not working 12 hours a day every day and never sleeping, because I am behind on everything that I'm doing, but I'm still working all of these hours. Really just figuring out how to make my time function well and have me function well as a person. So wonderful. I have a business plan now. I didn't have one. I've never had one.
Perfect. With just for my own mental kind of mile markers, did Patreon start in the last 4 months, or was it before?
No, Patreon actually started at the beginning of the pandemic.
Because it seemed like a great time to start.
Well, in my mind, it was okay. A lot of people are at home. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are starting to, learn about this medium. And the main thing was a lot of people are starting to ask me questions. And not starting, it's been that way for a long time, but it had been amping up considerably. And I'm the kind of person that wants to help. I'm a 2 Enneagram. I'm a giver, and I'm a Cancer. So I want to give everything away and help you. But I also started realizing, like, what I have to teach, and people clearly are listening, also has value. Sure. That has value. And especially as a woman, I think there is power in saying, yes, I will teach you, but my time is also worth something. Time that I have spent answering questions, and helping other people for free is time away from my children. And so this is when I was like, I could teach. I think that I relate to people well. I love to teach. I love to help people, but I need to also make this a profitable thing for me rather than just more time away from my kids. And so it's $10 a month, and it's a ton of content every month. It's 2 blog posts, 1 live stream, 1 tutorial, and color recipes. And it's a lot of fun. I love teaching, but it started in March, so it's almost a year now.
Wow.
And it's been very successful. So
Kylie, talk to me. What was the state of the union when you came into office? Like what is happening actually?
I'm embarrassing myself for like telling you guys how bad it was, but when can I be?
Yeah. So I mean, it's in all in good fun, but like seriously, it'd be worthwhile to know how, if one's right brain and one's left brain, like what did you see? How did you begin to try and get a lay of the land? Did you run a test before you started? Did you jump all in? What did it look like? What were the...
Dove right in.
Great.
Emily had told me things, right? That she was feeling certain ways, and that struggling, getting to point A, from point A to point B, that things were unorganized, like she was very upfront about that, but I didn't know like to what extent she meant these things, and so when I came into the studio, I was like, I don't even know
where do we start?
Yeah. And
part of that too, and in my defense almost, was that you did not realize from an outsider's perspective how much I did alone.
No, and so
how much I did alone.
So that's been really eye-opening too, is half of what I do is administrative, the other half is helping Emily with making. So I do a lot of the sanding and drilling and buffing and assembling of earrings. And every time I do that, I'm like, how did she? It's so time consuming. I have
hundreds of hours by myself.
I'm looking at just the earrings in sight, and there's, my guess would be about 16 different holes drilled to make those earrings fit. That takes a while.
And then if you mess one up, the earring's done.
Wow.
If it doesn't hang right or if it's not centered, so. But no, she was good though. That's the thing with Kylie though. And I'll forever say, Kylie has never made me feel self-conscious or bad about the state that I was in. Kylie has only made me feel empowered. Like, Emily, we have a game plan and this is what you're going to do, and I'm like, oh, I can't do this. Whoa. Like I have appointments and I have a Google Calendar. Like she's never made me feel like, wow, I am in fear or, how did you get yourself this way? But there's always been an understanding of, I don't know how you did this and I'm here to help, which is a very empowering thing. 'Cause it was very hard for me to ask for help for 2 years.
I also don't think that there's any shame in the fact that, there weren't formal processes and procedures.
It's not how my brain works.
It's not how her brain works, but obviously she's good at what she does. There's a lot of talent there. And really all she needed was like a type A brain to like put it on paper.
Yes.
and so how did you, what were the first things? What were like the first projects when you came in, Kylie?
The first project I actually did was organizing all of Emily's beads.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew she was going to say it. And I think it's a wonderful symbol. It's symbolism. Because all of my beads, for how many little categories there were, it didn't matter. They were all in all of them. They weren't organized. It's a bead organizer and they were not organized.
It was very symbolic.
That's what I'm saying.
So I physically organized a lot of her like crafting, making supplies. I can't even like do an inventory sheet for you if I don't know where anything is.
Yes. And I told her one of my issues was I hated buying things that I already had in supplies. But if I hadn't unpacked them or they're all in different areas, how do I know to reorder it or I've run out of something because I didn't check? And so those are the kinds of things where I could make things, but I could not follow through in the organizational aspects of it. And she's very good at that. So, yeah.
Yeah. So weeks organizing actual inventory.
Yeah.
That's where we started.
Yeah.
And then first,
I wonder if I'm going to be embarrassed.
No, so what you're doing, I mean, you're creating, I think, a very real.
There have to be other people that operate like this.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no question, and you're also making it sound like
inventory.
Anyone could get started, and with the right amount of luck and elbow grease, like you can get to a place where bad systems work well enough to bring someone in.
That's such a good way to put it.
You know what I mean? Like enough to bring someone in.
Yeah.
And at that point, like what happens now? Like, I'm so excited for the future of your business with your, dreams and your reality, and the two things together make for progress, right? So I don't think that this is anything to be feel shame about.
Yeah, I just sometimes I say things and I'm like, oh man, like should I have been like, I'm perfect?
No.
So like I said, it's hard for me to be anything besides that. So if anyone's listening and you struggle with organizing or feeling like you're good enough because you don't have systems, because you don't understand how to create a system, you are not a failure. Your brain just does not work that way. And it doesn't make you any less of a person. So I'm proof in that pudding that you can still survive and actually be a success, but cry incessantly behind the scenes because you don't know what you're doing. But ask for help. Ask for people who have strengths that are different than you. And don't be afraid of that, and don't be ashamed.
Heard. And I love that. And I love the idea of starting in the physical world with like, all right, let's clean up the workspace. Like step one, let's just tidy things up, and we don't need to pretend that there's a process yet. Let's just like get clean.
Yeah.
What happened next? The software.
Well, that's the thing. It's all been so very organic because when Kylie started, it was in October. And so a lot of it was getting inventory set up. Because, I mean, I'm not saying I lived in a pit. Like, I have a nice, pretty studio. But it was also like, okay, I have clay in 4 different parts of my studio. Like those were the things that you're right, we physically had to do. And your environment means everything with your mental facilities, whether if your facility is clean, your brain works a little bit better, but then the holidays happened. Yeah. And so it went from getting Kylie on board and organizing, and then me training Kylie of how to sand, how to buff, how to drill, how to package things. And we immediately jumped into making stuff for the holidays because then Christmas was here. And so it is actually just now that we've been really, through January, we took some time to really hone in on some things in terms of administrative stuff, to where there are more systems, because we did have systems then, like, getting the emails all set up. We got different domains for them and all these, like I have my own personal work email and stuff like that. But now, really driving home the things that have worked best with us and what haven't worked, what has not worked.
And what we really did, I mean, the first step in really like getting processes and procedures in place was after our holiday sale at the beginning of December. We sat down and we did what we now fondly refer to as a brain dump.
Yes, every week now. Brain dump.
But after the holiday, we had this massive brain dump where it was like, okay, let's talk about all the things we need to figure out.
Yeah.
Like, what is really hard for you right now that I can help you with? What can we drop? Like, what are we doing that's just useless? Where do we need to grow? What do we need actual steps written down for?
What didn't work?
What work?
Like was clearly a failure in execution.
Yeah. Like, how do we grow the business? What do we want to put in the business plan? What are the goals? Like, we just had this massive list. We wrote it all down. And then when we came back, we took a long break over Christmas, and came back in January and just started checking off the list. And it took us a month, but we feel really organized.
Yeah. Because a lot of the things that I've wanted to attack, like, because I teach on Patreon, but I've wanted to do individual mentoring. So on a more one-on-one personal basis for people, but I did not have a place to a calendar. And now, so getting those kinds of things worked out, and having seamless organization for appointments. And so it's, I'm not just emailing someone being like, hey, you want to hit me up on Thursday or whatever. It's like, there's literally a Calendly appointment and invoicing setup and all of these things that have seemed very far away and very beyond me. It's not. It's a matter of taking those things and learning them. And now I can do that. I do that weekly now. And it's not an issue. It's an empowering thing. And so those systems that have intimidated me would not be there without someone like Kylie, who knows me so intimately now, the worst parts of me, the best parts of me, and knows how to say, you can do this. This isn't an impossible task, and you're going to feel better for it. And so everybody needs somebody to be like that in their life. And I'm just lucky enough that I get to work with that person.
Thank you.
Are we going to cry now?
I think all 3 of us. That was beautiful. And I couldn't agree more. And it makes me think of a thing that I find myself saying a bunch is like, if you think there's a monster under the bed or a monster in the closet, it's like often really good to just go check, and like, if you're really afraid of like scheduling, like what if you just sat down like and like figured it out? Like how would Google how do you schedule things? Like Calendly shows up,
basically,
and then all of a sudden your system is better. And, it was an hour, it was a couple hours, whatever it was. But like that monster really didn't exist. Like it wasn't actually there, or it's never as bad as you think it's going to be.
Mm-mm. Then the monster may be there, but you're the one that created the features of his face. You're the one that created all of these things about that monster when you didn't have to fill it in. You just had to look.
What other monsters did you slay together, Kylie? What stands out in the last 4 months?
That's a big question.
I think there was a lot of little monsters, and some of them, it's been not just my monsters, but we were talking the other day about, and you said this earlier, Tony, and I thought this was a very good point. Things don't have to be hard, right? And both of us have had, we've been working very diligently on things to make our business run better, but both of us were both battling a little bit of feeling of, am I not working hard enough? Like I don't feel the chaos. Is there chaos? If it's not chaotic, am I not working?
I actually think that really is the biggest thing that we have addressed together. And just talking very openly about mental health and having a healthy work-life balance.
Yeah. Because I'm not going to go back to what it was. I don't want to be crying in a dumpster. And I there's no amount of money that will point me to that.
And as we prepared for the holidays, we were working 10, 12, 14 hours a day.
Yeah.
And so when we came back from this long break and we tackled all of these organizational things, and it was like, oh, we really only have to work 6 or 7 really concentrated hours, and that's fine. But then we started talking. We actually just had this conversation yesterday where it's like, I feel like I'm not doing it. I feel like I'm not stressed out enough.
Yeah.
Like,
we've traumatized ourselves to feel like that is the way to live a life and work.
Yeah. And I'm like, I feel like a useless lump. And Emily's like, you did 15 things today. You're not a useless lump. I think it's been kind of helping each other get to that point where we're like, okay, this is okay to feel happy.
Yeah. It's okay to feel happy, and it's okay not to thrive in chaos.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want, a lot of people have, said about me being real, and I embrace the dumpster fire. I hate that I've said that so many times, but also it's funny, and it is a part of me, but it also doesn't have to be me. It can be the funny parts of me and the weird sense of humor and the jokes and whatever, and killing a joke, but it doesn't have to be me. And it was me, and it's not me anymore. And I can accept that. I can say, hey, whoa, I am allowed to feel happy, and I'm allowed to feel successful because what I'm doing is making me happy and is successful. I'm not crying every day at home and wondering how many emails I've missed and what orders I've messed up. And, there are systems now, and I'm allowed to thrive in those systems. It doesn't have to be chaos all the time. And that can be hard when that's all you've known for quite a while. So both of us bouncing back and forth from her with her job, and there was a lot of stuff asked of her all of the time. Just being able to say, like, we did a good job today and there's nothing else asked of us. We can go home and relax. And that's a lucky and privileged place to be. I fully understand that. But it can also be difficult when you've been in almost a traumatic situation where you put your own self in there from mental health issues or things like that, where you haven't been able to function. And that's all you know. And so now it's just saying, hey, you did a good job. Don't question it. Go home, drink some tea, take a bath.
It's quitting time.
It doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't have to be painful, and we don't have to take our work home with us. That is something boundary-wise I have told myself from now on. I get my job done. I have work email. I don't check it at home. And that's it. Wow. That's it. And it's done wonders for my mental health, but it's been hard for us to accept that.
Yeah.
Am I supposed to feel good?
Well, I think that you're getting at something, and I don't, I wish I had a way to tie it up in a bow, but there is something really powerful in, you mentioned something about identity being wrapped up into like the dumpster fire persona, which can mirror in a number of different ways in other people's worlds, right? So it's like, I identify as X. If I'm doing things that aren't X, who am I? What am I? And is it, even if it's progress, like, does it induce fear? Will gravity pull you back to that person, even if you know in your heart you don't want to be that person anymore, that it no longer serves you, that identity no longer serves you. Goodbye. Thank you. It's been a blast. And so, I think that's really special and really powerful. And,
you can find comfort in self-depreciation because you don't accept the fact that you were valuable and worthy of having appreciation. And that's what I've been trying to avoid, is not leaning back into, I'm a mess, because right now I'm the least mess I've ever been, and
I'd like
it's okay
look
to say
out.
that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's so, and I don't know. I'm excited for it. I think that if the model is that chaos got you here. There's a book title, and honestly I've never read the book, but I do like Marshall Goldsmith generally. He wrote a book called "What Got You Here Won't Get You There." I
already like that title.
Right? That's just a great. You don't even need to read the book. You just know. Okay, heard. And I think that at a certain point, I've said it in a past episode, but like at a certain point, like the people that I most admire, like shed a skin, learn a lesson, become the next thing. Like they go from the caterpillar to the butterfly, evolve. Yep. And if you can just, if you have the presence of mind to know when you're in one of those moments and like choose not to make the same mistakes again, that's a beautiful thing. And all of the dumpster fire was worth it at this point.
Right. It kept me warm then, but I have my own coping mechanisms and systems in place to keep me going.
Beautiful. I love it. So talk to me, what are we looking forward to in 2021?
Go ahead.
We have a business plan now, Penny. So we have goals and a business plan. And part of it, I mean, obviously a lot of this is COVID dependent and, seeing where that goes. Assuming it's safe to interact with people again, what we'd really love to do this year is start having events at the studio.
Or attend markets, see people at all.
We've never sold at a market. We would really love to do some local markets. We would love to do classes here.
Where is the studio?
It's in Cheshire in Black Mountain.
Beautiful.
We're right above like Artisan Market, that area.
I don't know Black Mountain well, other than it's a cute little.
Adorable.
It is so stinking cute. Oh my goodness.
It's so cute.
Okay.
We're lucky to work here. We'd love to open the studio by appointment only for people who want to come to the shop. So that's kind of all on the docket for 2021, assuming we can, see people again.
Yeah, I just miss smiling at people.
Humans are pretty great. I miss humans.
The introverted part of me, I think, is satisfied now. I miss people.
I heard.
But with that, really just having more consistent work put out, and just small things. Like we have a newsletter going now.
Great.
If you want to sign up for it, it's on my website, shop31sons.com. But like that, those are things that are going to help boost growth that I didn't have time for or didn't understand.
Email is the lifeblood of e-commerce businesses. I think that everything else is great. If you can find someone that does incredible ad stuff, awesome. If you can find a great, community manager, or you do a great job on content, amazing. Emails drive sales. It's incredible.
Oh, totally. Well, and something too that, I wonder and think about, if Instagram disappeared tomorrow, what would I have left? What would I have?
Yeah.
And there's never been a better time to think through questions like that. And that's why the email list is the owned relationship. It's the direct channel to someone's, I'll call it digital mailbox. That's not good enough.
To their wallet.
Into their wallet. Yeah.
Do you want to buy this?
Which is so real. And that's all. Yeah. So it's marketing. I have a feeling you're going to do a great job at email marketing. That's my guess.
Well, Kylie's been in charge of that, and they've been wonderful. It's very happy. So
wonderful. And then with wholesale, I mean, I ask because I think products and I almost always think wholesale. Is that a part of the business today at all or no?
No,
Great.
it's not today. And I'm glad you asked because it is also in the business plan. We'd really love to bring on one wholesale partner in 2020. So if there's any wholesalers listening.
Yes, any boutiques out there.
Yeah, because we'd really love to work with somebody local.
Yes.
To start and just see how that goes. So we are looking. Sure.
Yes. And I feel like since we've created these systems now, especially, in terms of me creating inventory, I have the capacity to do that now. And I have the capacity to do it well, because the last thing I want to do, and, going back to mental health and leaning into my power of the choices I can make as a person, as a professional, and as a business owner, I'm not going to do anything that's just going to create more chaos or make me unhappy or does not feel like it's worth it. And I was never at a point where I could take something on and do it the way I want to do. Because even, it's funny, because Kylie knows and can say this, for how chaotic I can be sometimes, I am a perfectionist when it comes to my work. I am absolutely the definition of anal. And so it's funny balancing that. So I had not wanted to take on something until I could do it the way I wanted to do it and do it well with my name attached to it. And so now I'm finding that balance where we can include something like that. And I'm excited to do it. I would love to walk into a store and see my name on something, that'd be cool. That'd be a cool feeling. So that's on the plan, but yeah.
Cool. And then it seems like direct coaching, consulting, or something similar for product makers is also on the docket.
That is an ongoing thing already.
Cool. That's
with Patreon. I teach on that platform. It's all the time. It's an ongoing subscription. And then mentoring is a thing now too, which is, brought light into my life because I can see people and talk to them and because I love talking about clay. Yeah. I love, that's where the teaching thing also opened up an aspect of me I didn't know existed too. And it's been very empowering with that, but with balance. So the mentoring thing has been very, very fun, but that's, we'll see how that goes too.
Heard. And so what does balance look like in your lives today, right? You're quitting out of work, the whistle blows and you're like, all right, punching out. What does balance, what does non-work hours, what do they involve?
You're first.
Well, so I'm very fortunate that we start our workday at the crack of 10 a.m. But I'm also in graduate school right now. So my day, I usually am up about 6:30. I do my schoolwork from 7 to 9, which is great because in my previous role, I was doing it into the wee hours of the morning.
Yes.
So I get up, I do that in the morning, come to the studio. We always pick out, okay, this is what we're doing today.
Mini brain dump.
Mini brain dump.
Yep.
So many brain dumps.
Yeah,
all the time.
So many all the time.
And we put in a solid 6.5-ish hours right now. So 4:30, we're like, okay, we're out of here.
But that's the thing though, is when you're your own boss, because sometimes even hearing that, I'm like, God, people think we don't work, but it's not that. Especially as an artist, there's other times too where I'm working until 2 a.m. because I have a thing in my head that I have to get out and create, And so I try to make allowances for that in a more scheduled work environment to where, okay, I'm going to stay until 8 o'clock because I'm doing stuff. But during a standard day, I try to have it.
We try to make sure we have a full evening at home.
Yeah. There was a whole year where I didn't see my children and I lived in the same house with them. It was like, this is not worth it, and my husband's also in school full time for speech pathology. And so balancing that, it was just so chaotic. I'm just very aware of, I can work really, 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 really hard for 6 to 7 hours and then not suffer later on. There's no point in working 12 hours and kind of half-assing it the whole time and being miserable and not sleeping or seeing your family. But if you can work really productively and really hard for 6 or 7 hours and get done, then that's awesome, Sure. And we're lucky to be in a position to be able to do that, where we can make our own schedule like that.
Yeah. You don't have to convince me that a short work day it can be just as powerful. I swear by it. I think that we're kind of not hardwired, brainwashed. We're built into a system that is, if you look back at it and you ask a couple questions, you're like, well, why does it have to be 9 to 5? Like, why do we have to show up at the same time? Why? It's because, to make a Ford Model T, everyone needed to be there at the same time. Like, that's just, that's it.
That's a good point.
And a work day is somebody else's thing. And I think that we're in a time of, there are certain things that, like production, right? When you're making earrings, certain processes need to take a certain amount of time. It bakes for an hour, whatever it is. Like, that's not going to not happen that way. But, lightning strikes and you have the new design that happens in a moment, and then you have to capture it, and that happens in 20 minutes. And then, we are skilled workers now, where our brains are the tool. And I think that you're right. 3 to 5 hours of hard brain work that's a full day. That's a full day.
It can be. And the 9 to 5 ass and seat mentality. I'm hoping that there are a lot of bosses and places out there now with the pandemic that are realizing now that you can work from home, you can work in a comfortable environment and get just as much work done, if not more, without having to show up and say, here's my face, I deserve to get paid.
Sure.
Like, you can work from home or work at a more relaxed pace and you don't feel like you want to die, because, we've just, like you said, been ingrained to have these work experiences. And that's what Kylie and I were talking about earlier, that it's okay to feel this way, because we have made a balanced schedule for ourselves, where our priority is our mental health and our family. And, that's a healthy way to view that. It's a healthy way to view that. And it's hard sometimes, because you want to combat that and say, no, I did not work 12 hours today. I do not deserve this happiness, And so I really want to change the narrative on that. I was not happy doing that.
I think that I'm with you in this pursuit of the narrative change towards a much healthier experience. And if it's something that you're spending the majority of your waking hours either doing or thinking about, like, why couldn't it be fun? Why couldn't it be pleasant?
Why can't I enjoy it?
Yeah.
Why can't I enjoy it? Why do I have to get to a place where I resent it? And I don't want to resent the thing that changed my life and made me happy.
It's beautiful.
I've had that conversation a lot lately too.
Yeah. Burnout is real as an artist.
We're very privileged to be in a situation where we essentially work for ourselves. So why not make this an environment that we enjoy?
Yeah.
That we want to come to every day, that we're not going to get burned out. So we've been very conscientious about making sure we pursue that.
Like, we go on walks, like, we need to stand. We've been sitting here for hours, like doing work or whatever. We need to stand. But just those little pleasures, can make things different. But we are very grateful for our customers and for the people that have stuck with me. That have made this possible and stuck with my growth and have wanted to see more and wanted to purchase more and have welcomed Kylie so warmly. It was not even like, who's Kylie? It was like, Kylie! Like, everyone was, it's like I said, I don't know how I functioned without Kylie before. I didn't function well. And now, all I feel is empowerment, for what I can do and the growth I want to work towards. And I just hope that other people can hear this and know that it's not, if you've defined yourself a certain way, that's you right in the definition, and if you can change it.
Heard that, snaps, all of it. So I think that is beautiful, and I'll say that we are now wrapped up on you talking about the business, because that's a perfect little period at the end. Let's talk about your time in the greater Asheville area, Western North Carolina. Black Mountain is our sister town, it seems. Swannanoa is on the way. What is how long have you been in Asheville? What are some of your favorite things about this area?
Well, for me, it's kind of unfortunate because we moved here in 2018, actually, from Myrtle Beach. Never going back. I paid my time. We moved here in 2018. I had a newborn. And that entire year was when I started polymer clay. And so I had a baby. We couldn't go many places. And it was like once Hank got old enough And we were like, we could go on dates now, and really start to explore the area. COVID hit. And so it feels like the limited experience I've had here has been wonderful. Yeah. I keep telling Kylie, I was like, I'm going to eat everything here because there's so many good restaurants, but it's like I haven't had that much opportunity to try. But, once COVID is over, I feel like the town's going to get sick of me because I'm going everywhere. But it's been, I've met so many wonderful, interesting, and just warm people. Sometimes I was worried a little bit that, a lot of people moved to Asheville. I was reading message boards and they were like, don't come here. Like
it's
there's
very
no jobs.
real. Yeah.
There's no jobs and blah, blah. I was like, oh my God, are people going to hate me? And like, I've only made friends here and everyone's just been so welcoming and so kind. And I met Kylie and like, it feels like she's my sister and just, it's been a great experience and I just can't wait to experience it more when we hopefully all get the vaccine. So, And what about you? What are you going to show me in Asheville? Show me everything.
So actually, I haven't been here that long either. I moved here in 2015.
Okay.
And moved here with my now husband. We were actually living in Montana before we moved here. We were doing the life and realized we were getting a little too old for that and we probably needed to do something a little more serious. And he's originally from Charleston, but went to school at Western Carolina University out in Silva, and his parents were out that way. And so, we thought, let's give Asheville a try. And so we picked up and moved out here and did not have jobs lined up, didn't really have a place lined up, and just figured it out. It's worked out great for us. We love it. We're really outdoorsy people. So we love to camp. We love to hike, play a lot of disc golf. So all that, thankfully, those hobbies we've been able to maintain throughout COVID. But yeah, we're definitely missing kind of the food and beer scene in our life.
Heard that. With one of the questions I find myself asking a lot is a word association. I'm going to say Asheville and community. What stands out for each of you?
I would just say for me, it's a very warm.
That's the first word I thought of was warm.
Place. It instantly felt like home, and it was really easy for us to adapt. And yeah, it's a very homey place.
Jason, my husband's name is Jason, and something that we always talk about is, because when you live at the beach, it can kind of be the beach bum thing. Something that we always talk about is in Asheville and in cities like this, bigger cities and artistic cities, it's always very inspiring to see people try. And that's a big thing for us, is to see people try that new restaurant, try that new community, try that leadership position, try that club, try. Because if you see other people trying, it makes you want to try. And if you're surrounded by people that don't care and that just want to go to the beach and drink all day, which is fun, but it's also being surrounded by people that are always trying towards something. And I see a lot of Asheville in that. So that's always been something that we comment on, and we're just like, God, we're so glad that we live here, so.
Dang, that's beautiful. I hear that, and I agree. I think that you're right. People are, I think, more often than not, a lot of people are trying in Asheville, which is, I find it
to make it.
They're trying to make it. Especially when you I find that a meaningful enough portion of our audience are people who are like on their way to Asheville. Like either it's they're about to move, or they've just moved, or are thinking about moving, and they listen and they hear about the community of people, and they probably read a message board post that was like, "Don't move here," and are like concerned, are like concerned. And what I've found is that it's an incredibly warm space where most people are trying to support the community, or trying to make the community better, or trying.
And at the end of the day, the people that are leaving messages on message boards are the angry people that leave messages on message boards.
Yeah, you're like pre-screened for a certain type of person's going to reply to that.
And Tony, I know you're interviewing us. We're not interviewing you, so you can totally cut that if you want to. But I'm really curious. Like, we really didn't know a lot about this podcast, prior to this. So
you didn't have to.
know. Like,
yeah, we were looking stuff up.
Who's your like listener base? Like, do a lot of people listen? What, when did you guys start doing this? Like, I'm curious about what you do.
Sure. Yeah. So we started the podcast like 2 weeks before we moved to Asheville, and that was in just before May of 2019. So we're coming up on 2 years, and we thought that it would be a meaningful way to build a network to like have an ask that was better than, can I take you to coffee, or like, can I pick your brain? It's like, you want to be on our podcast? And it's been the best thing we've like ever done. We have a great friendships that have formed out of the podcast. We have we're 1 degree from pretty much anyone that we've heard of so far, and it's been absolutely incredible. And so people do listen. We're over, I don't know what the number is at this point, maybe 30,000 people have listened to the podcast, which is cool.
Awesome.
I mean, you're always measuring against like this other person that doesn't exist, and
right. The ghostly they.
Exactly. And it's like, we listen to the Daily, and like the Daily gets 1 million plus downloads a day, and so it's like, what are we doing? But I'm like, the city only has 100,000. Yeah, like the city only has 100,000 people, so it's good. We won Mountain Express's best podcast, which we
awesome.
Yeah, so that was a fun moment, because we internally, I was like, Sarah, hey, like that's a big deal. And then turns out when it actually came out, I don't think there were any other podcasts listed. So it was like, it wasn't like a top 3. We won outright.
Still frame it. Still put it in the office.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's so cool though. And I just want to say thank you too, because like looking at when I was researching y'all's podcast, the fact that there's someone out there, and it goes back to the trying, being asked to be on something like this, is such an incredible opportunity. We've been so thankful. It's so nice to see someone or like you guys that are out there encouraging people to try, even in the title, making it in Asheville. Yeah. This was validation of, we see you trying. We want to talk about how you're trying. Maybe you can inspire somebody else to try. And so you doing that with all these businesses, I think is really an encouraging and wonderful thing.
Mm. Thank you.
Aww, I love this interview.
This is perfect. This is my favorite. And so, I mean, I think, thank you. And that is definitely our intention. We, somewhere on a website page somewhere, the idea was like normalizing the many ways of making it in Asheville, or just trying, maybe, and it's intentionally not made it in Asheville, right? Like, this is a gerund, this is a active verb. We are working to try and continue to do it, because
it's a verb.
It's a verb.
We're always, if you've made it, then you've given up on some part. There's always something to do. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And so with that, if the listeners who have made it this far, and I call this the cheap seats of the episode, if they wanted to find you, follow along, watch the dumpster blaze on Instagram.
Hey, hold on, pause. The dumpster blazed.
It's over. Okay. Yeah. The smoldering ash.
Term. Yes, that's past tense. I am now a comfortable, happy little fire in a fireplace that just occasionally someone throws a can in. Okay. It's very aesthetic, very pretty as stockings, but sometimes a wrench gets thrown in, or a can, or a tire or something. But if anyone wants to find me, it's Shop 31 Sons on Instagram. The website is also shop31sons.com. And sign up for our newsletter. Yeah, sign up for our newsletter. And then also, if polymer clay is a medium that you're interested in learning, or honestly, I talk way more about, not way more, but I also talk about running a business, and I very openly share my experiences of what has worked, what has not worked. And kind of follow along my journey, or if you need help of what not to do, and then what I figured out what to do in terms of a business, my Patreon, I think, is also a great resource for that. So that's where you can find me.
Wonderful.
One day I want a Twitter. I don't know how to work it.
I think there are enough platforms, but you have a professional email address now. You mentioned in the episode. You don't need to share it, but I think that's a huge milestone. I think that I'm always kind of, to me, Spotify. So not Spotify. So you're on Shopify. Squarespace has a marketing campaign that says like it's real when you have a website. It's real or something. You know, like, it's like a real. It's a powerful concept, and I've always thought that like when you have a professional email, you're now a pro. Like it's the next level.
That's how it felt, especially because too, it's a domain that we had to buy and then set it up as like a third-party domain in Apple email. And it was such a thing of us figuring out how to do this. And we did that. We did it with 3 different emails, and we were like, we're professional.
It might have taken us like
a whole day to figure this out. But now we know how to do it. If I wanted to add an email tomorrow, I could.
Yeah, I think
that's fire what.
But you're absolutely right. That is a huge milestone, and I am
It's all about finding the things that empower you.
Yes, I cannot wait to follow up with you in the months and years ahead and see like if you were growing the way you grew pre Kylie and plans and process, what happens now? Like, oh my goodness.
We can only go up from here. We can only go up.
Well, thank you both for your time.
Or like anything, you know.
It'll look like the mountains of Western North Carolina. There'll be some valleys.
We will scale them. But thank you again so much for having us. I'm looking forward to listening to this and listening to the future episodes. So thank you so much.